AG4YL here. I didn't want to interrupt you if you had a little QSO going on there. For Nisi and a few of the other gals, I'd like to welcome you to the YL OP NET. As I said, this is Melanie, AG4YL, and kind of co-net controlling this net with Catherine, AC4YL. We meet every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, or thereabouts, on the OP NET ALARA Conference node. Be sure to invite all YLs you know to join us. We ask that only YLs or female ham radio operators check in and participate. The purpose of this net is to encourage you to become and stay active with amateur radio, help each other enhance our operating knowledge and skills, and have fun. During the net, be sure to join us in the NFARL Do Drop In chat room by opening any web browser and going to nfarl.dodropin.org. Just put your name, --call sign in the box, and then click log in. Nisi is good about posting the address and the Echolink chat and inviting all the gals to come over and chat in the Do Drop In and Artful Do Drop In chat room. So I encourage you to do the same. As I said, Catherine and AC4 will be joining us shortly, and I'm going to probably go ahead and start taking check-ins. I do not have a logging program up, so I will be doing this by hand at the good old-fashioned way, right? So, why else would like to check in? Please give us your call sign, name, and current location. And don't forget that there is a 3 or 4 second delay when transmitting through Echolink and all its connected repeaters and reflectors. This is Melanie, AG4YL. We will now begin taking check-ins. Please call now.
KC8TKY, Linda, Knox, Indiana.
K4IJK, K4 India Juliet Kilo, Rhode Island.
This is Kilo Mike 4 Lima Alpha Oscar, KM4 LEO, currently in Augusta, Georgia. Ruth.
MB Margaret, Battleground, Washington.
K4IJK, Janice in Rhode Island.
KD0WAU, that's Kilo Delta 0 Whiskey Alpha Uniform, Barb in Andover, Kansas.
Victor Alpha 3 Whiskey Hotel Uniform, a lowly Canadian here in Hamilton, Ontario.
Okay. This is AG4YL. And let's go ahead and proceed with who we have there so far. Linda, KC8PKY, Indiana. Janice, K4IJK, Rhode Island. I got you in the log, but thanks for coming back, just making sure we had you. Ruth, KM4LAO. Good to hear you on the net tonight, Ruth. I'm glad you could join us, and what state are you in, Ruth? KM4LAO, AG4YL, and the net.
Good evening, Melanie, AG4YL. This is KM4LAO. I'm currently in Augusta, Georgia, Golf Alpha. Back to you.
Okay, very good, Ruth. I thought you said Augusta, Georgia, but I figured maybe I just wrote it down out of habit, like I didn't hear it, but I heard it, somewhere in the recesses of my memory. So, okay, awesome. You'll have to tell us a little bit later how you come to be in Augusta. But let's go on and finish doing the logins. Margaret, AE7MB from Washington. Barb, KD0WAU from Kansas. And Carol, VA3WHU from Ontario. And you are not to worry about being the lonely Canadian there, Carol. And always good to have you on the net as well. Let's go ahead and continue taking check-ins. This is AG4YL.
VE3BHG, April from Welland, Ontario, Canada.
How many YLs here need Rhode Island?
Okay. I have Rhode Island. I guess there's no other YLs there that need Rhode Island. All right, so to continue, there is April, VE3BHG, April from Ontario as well. See, there you go, Carol. And we also have Nisi. I'm going to go ahead and take that as a check-in, even though you were on the net before I was. Hi. K1ULN, Nisi from Massachusetts. Also, I see that Lawrence calls up at QC9ZHV. Lauren, if you're listening, good evening. Lawrence from Illinois. And WB1ARUN, I saw you pop in after the last check-in, so I know you're probably just hanging in there waiting to see what was going on and if we were around and what we were doing. So we got a little late start, and that's what's happening there. I think I got everybody so far on the board, and I believe Catherine might be ready to say hello to everybody. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to her and have her say hi and see what we're going to do today. We might go down the checklist and just chat with everybody. Let me just pass it over to Catherine, AC4YL, from AC4YL and the group.
Good evening, ladies. AC4YL here. Apologize for the delay. Ran a little late for work and had to grab a bite to eat for dinner, so that's the way it goes sometimes. So good evening, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. And thanks, Melanie, for jumping in and kicking off the net for us. Okay, so this evening's topic is about what we do is go down the list here and talk about your first setup. So when you first got your amateur radio license, how did you get started in getting on the air? Because I'm sure several of us have, a unique story or different story. Some might be the same. But, they're all kind of different in their own way. So looking forward to hearing your first setup and how you got started in amateur radio as we go down the list. So I'm going to kick it off here to share with you how I got started, and then I'll pass the mic over to Melanie, and she can tell us about her first ham radio setup, and we'll then go down the list from there. Let me pause for a reset. Okay, so for me personally, I went and got my technician license, and one of the VEs there suggested that I get an inexpensive HT, and recommended the Belfangs because they were inexpensive. You could get them for around $35 to $40 to get started. And another nice tip that he gave me was don't use the rubber duck antenna. Instead, go get you a mag mount antenna. So that's exactly what I did next. I ordered one of the radios, the HTs, and got it for about $35 and ordered it online. And then picked up a mag mount antenna and put it on the car. And I had a lot of fun just monitoring the local repeaters going into work every day. That was my first radio that I had in my first setup, so I guess you could say that my first ham shack was in the car. And that's how I got started. And then, of course, you know, I was really close to the repeater for the local club I was a member of, so it worked out great because I could hit that repeater with my HT in the house, even on the rubber duck antenna, and had no issues getting out. So that was a lot of fun. That was my first setup. And then from there, I borrowed a radio from the club, upgraded to General, and that really worked out well as well. That was my first HF rig, was a radio, a Yaesu 840 that I borrowed from the club. So that was my first setup, and then my second radio that I got to play with. So anyway, with that, I'm going to pass it over to Melanie so she can tell us her first shack. AG4YL, AG4YL in the group.
AG4YL here. Awesome. Well, my story is very similar. When I got my license, one of my VEs told me as soon as I got my ticket, you know, he said I passed, and he said, okay, so here's what you need to do, is you need to get on this WildNet on Echolink. And I'm like, I already got the info, I'm ready to go. He's like, okay, then you need to pick up a Baofeng radio from Amazon. It's like, Baofeng, you can afford that. You get yourself a handheld ham radio from Amazon, and that'll get you started. He was wonderful. He was, I guess you could say, he was sort of my first Elmer. But the long and the short of it was I got a Baofeng 5R as brand new as a gift from another ham. And then I knew not to use the car. You can't really use the rubber duck antenna in the car. So didn't do a lot with it until another ham got me a Meg-mount quarter-wave antenna to put on top of my car and the adapter to connect it to the radio. Now I had a mobile rig. So that was my first setup, was a mobile rig. And then later on I got a battery adapter, a battery eliminator given to me, and a hand mic for the Baofeng. So I could hook it all up and put the battery adapter in the cigarette lighter, plug it in there, and I clipped the belt clip from the Baofeng onto one of the middle seat belts unused in my car, and hung the hand mic over my gear shift lever, and by golly, I had a full, 4-watt mobile rig, yeehaw. And I would listen on the repeaters, and that was my very first setup, was a little Baofeng HT, not unlike the setup. I don't know if Catherine wants me to go ahead and pass it on to the next person, but we'll just roll on down there, and let's pass it over and hear what, let's hear from Linda, KC8CKY, you know the format, you hear what we're doing. What was your first ham radio set up? KC8CKY, AG4YL, and the net.
This is KC8CKY. Well, my first setup was kind of similar to what you folks had. We got these ADIs. They don't even make them anymore, handhelds, and with hand mics and mag mount antennas. And that was the first mobile setup that I had, and we did pretty well with those. They reached pretty far. And then when I got my General, I told my husband he had to buy me an 817, so I got my 817 and used that for a while. And then when conditions got bad, I happened to inherit a little bit of funds, so I bought an 897. And that's where I'm at now. And with that, I will pass it back to Net Control, KC8CKY.
Okay, well, I'll pick it back up for the net here, AG4YL here. I see NKC9YL has joined us, and good evening to you, Ann. And we are just talking about our very first ham radio, very first, radio setup, if you will. And just kind of going down the line of ticking, so I do have you in the log, and we'll pick you up on down there. If anybody, by the way, is short time or mobile, if you could, if you want to break in and let us know that, you got a couple seconds and not much time and you want to get on in there, just let us know. Let's go on down the list for the time being. K4IJK Janice. Janice, what was your first ham radio setup? K4IJK AG4YL and the net. Okay, this is AG4YL. Maybe Janice stepped away for a minute, or maybe she's having a bite to eat. I'll give it a shot one more time, and then we'll come back to her if she doesn't answer. K4IJK Janice. AG4YL and the net. What was your first ham radio setup? Okay, Jeff probably just stepped away. We'll come back and pick her up and talk to her in a little bit and find out her story. Ruth KM4LAO, AG4YL and the net. What was your first radio setup? Hey, AG4YL returning. Looks like Ruth has dropped off the list, so she may be having a connection issue, but we'll keep an eye out for her. Oh, and I neglected to mention to say hello to our friends in Bedford, Virginia, listening to the K4LYL repeater. Any YLs want to, jump in, participate, check in, you can jump in at any time, just break on in. That's no problem. And let us know that you're out there and listening. And we appreciate y'all connecting up to us, and for all the OMs that are listening as well. Thank you for your support. Okay, we'll come back and see if Ruth pops back up again. In the meantime, let's see. It looks like Janice is still on my list. So let's see if Janice is available. K4IJK, Janice. This is AG4YO and the group. What was your first ham radio setup?
Yeah, this is K4IJK. Very good. Very good. Well, I've been doing this for, I think it's 55 plus years. I've got my 55 certificate I got from the Yankee chapter. So I've been doing this for a long, long time. And my first setup was, I was a technician, and I was operating on 6 meters AM, and I had what they call the lunchbox, the Heathkit 6er. That's what I had. And we were on 6 meters AM, and it was a wide open band, and everybody was on it, and there was DX all over the place and everything, and we had a great time back in those old days, and I miss those old days. So I wish we could have them back again. But that was my first setup, and I am now I'm no longer a technician. I've graduated to the amateur extra, so I went after that. So anyway, I'm happy with what I'm doing now, and my setup here is I've got the Kenwood TS480 HF. It's got 6 meters on it, but I don't have an antenna for 6 meters right now. So so I operate HF, and that's about it. So back to you, K4IJK.
AG4YL returning. Excellent, Janice. Yeah, I'm familiar with the Sixers and how Heath Kit designated some of their equipment back then. I understand it was a heck of a rig, although I've never personally played radio on one. Six has been doing pretty well lately. Six and 10 have been having, well, you know, it's getting toward the end of summer, so we know those openings are going to start fading out here, but 6 and 10 have been glorious this summer from what I've heard. So I recently got an antenna to actually work those bands that haven't yet, but I understand they've just been fabulous. The NFARL, the club that I belong to, and the one whose do-drop-in chat room that we use. And by the way, you know, go pop in over there at the do-drop-in chat room. It's nfarl.dodropin.org, and Catherine's going to pop it in. I just know it. I'll put it in the chat so that everybody knows where it is, and I'm sure she's over there probably looking at it too. But yeah, Janice, my dad was a ham, and my mom back in those good old days. So I know from whence those times were. I think everybody really that was doing it back then really misses it. Good deal on having the Kenwood. I have a Kenwood 590 SG and absolutely love it. And Catherine recently secured the 480. So, you know, the SG is a good for bass, but it's a little heavy to lug around and play portable. She's got the 480 to play portable. That'll be a lot of fun. We can go out and play a little bit more with lighter baggage, as it were. Let me drop for reset. Okay, AG4YL returning. I do not see Ruth back yet. Perhaps she just popped on and had to go, or perhaps she's having connection issues, or storms messing with power or something out there. And Augusta, we're clear here, but you can go 10 miles in any direction. The weather will be entirely different. That's Georgia for you. Go to Margaret. Margaret, AE7MB. Good evening to you. And what was your first radio setup? And since people seem to kind of be enjoying talking about what they currently have, you know, you can let us know what you're playing radio with currently. But what was your first ham radio setup? And what are you using now? It doesn't matter if it's VHF, UHF, HF, whatever you use, whatever you're on. And if you don't have a radio and you're just here with us on Echolink, that's fine. I started with Echolink, but my first true, I guess I should have said that, my first true radio setup was RF setup was my Balfang. So, AE7MB, AG4YL, and the net.
Well, my first setup, let's see. I got my license in '76, so I'm not quite as experienced as Judy, but I married a ham, so there was already a setup in the spare bedroom, and I don't remember too much about it except that it was crystal controlled, and handhelds back in those days were called bricks because that's about how heavy they were and about the size that they were. Now I've got a little Bofang that I use for when I'm out doing public service events like races and parades and that sort of thing, we've got ICOM equipment basically for mobiles, and we've got Yaesu for base stations. But my husband is pretty much responsible for choosing and selecting, and then I just kind of piggyback on the side, which makes it nice for me because then I don't have to worry about anything. If something doesn't work, I just say, "Dear, it's not working," or "It's making funny noises," and I let him take care of all those problems. With that, I'm going to turn it back to you. This is AE7MB, back to net.
Well, there you go. One last thing that you don't have to worry about, right? I know about the bricks. After my father had passed away in late of 1972, probably within the next year or two, we had my mom had a couple of ham friends. The four of them would hang out, and I think were friends before I was even born. But I can remember them coming over with, an HT, a handheld, a portable. I think they called them a portable transceiver, portable VHF transceiver, I think is what they, actually labeled them. And yes, it was a brick. It was huge. It was a great big gigantic walkie-talkie, and it was heavy and cumbersome, and had a big antenna. But you could sit in your house and pull out this antenna, and you could work machines quite well with it. They were very effective. They were just humongous, and I can only imagine probably 90% of that weight was batteries, and just to power the doggone thing. But and I don't remember any details about it and what the wattage was. But I know that I sat in the living room and talked with another ham via some repeater in the Detroit area that knew my dad. And so yeah, I remember holding the great big brick. So I am familiar with that. That's kind of interesting. Judy KD7IXI joins us. Good evening, Judy. We have you on the log. Next, let's move on to Barb at KD0WAU. Barb, what was your first ham radio setup, be it big or small? KD0WAU, AG4YL, and the net.
Thank you so much, KD0WAU. This is Barb. To tell you the truth, I got my tech license, and I had to go on vacation, and I registered with Echolink. So my first call was to the Breakfast Club, and they're out of they use the Dewdrop Inn as their Echolink node, but they're out of Central Michigan, and the Amateur Radio Club. And I talked to the guy, Don, and in the Breakfast Club. He was a lot of fun. And he said, you should talk to my wife, Julie. She'll be on I think it was Tuesday nights. Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. And so I used the Echolink, and I talked to Julie, and that was their ladies' tea time, the Central Michigan Amateur Radio Club, and I talked to them. My first radio actually was a TYT, which was awful, confusing. Got rid of that very quickly, and got a Yaesu FT60, and then got a hold of RT Systems and programmed it so I could talk to the local repeaters. But talking to the local people were it didn't enthuse me very much. So I got back with Julie, and Julie coached me into setting up a ladies' net locally off of our local repeater. So from there, Julie now is a silent T, but she was, if you could say, an Elmira. She was my Elmira to show me how to put together a local ladies' net on Tuesday night. So that's kind of how I progressed. Right now I'm playing around with DMR and trying to make it portable, but I have in my shack, I have an 857, an 817, and a 920, and I played a 920. These are all Yaesus. And so I'm played around with the ST2DR, and I can't figure out how to use it. One of these days I'll get back to doing that, but that's my repertoire there. Thanks for letting me come in, ladies. Back to net control.
Hey, G4YL here. Well, thank you, Barb. I'm familiar with Julie and Don. Once I got my license and got onto this net back in the late 2014, early 2015, that, of course, was my first experience doing anything, ham radio related, talking to other people, albeit on Echolink. And I was so excited about having this, and, I didn't have a radio yet at the time. I hadn't gotten my little bow thing yet. And I had to search all over, Echolink and find different things and look things up online, and I discovered Julie's Ladies Tea Time, and a few other nets out there. But Julie was absolutely wonderful, and for those that didn't have the opportunity to have contact with her, really missed out. She was a wonderful, she was an excellent net control operator, different kind of net than this net, but it was still wonderful, and enjoyed chatting with her and the other ladies that were on it. And my husband, Don, him and I would get on the Dewdrop-In chat and chat back and forth. He is quite a man. Yeah, Central Michigan Amateur Radio Club, Julie was actually president of that club. So she was very active in that club. And if you go to CMARC's page, there is still a separate ladies page that Julie set up. So her legacy lives on, as it were. And the Breakfast Club has gone to a local meetup with Don and the gang. Actually, it went from virtual to actual local meetup. Let me let this stop. So that's wonderful, Barb, and I don't know too much about that first HT that you have. The TYT, I've seen them advertised and heard of them, but I've never met anyone that had one. I always enjoyed my bow thing and never had a problem with it. Pretty easy with a control click cable and chip software to program it too. All right, Carol, BA3WHU. What was your first ham radio? Like I said, it could be VHF, UHF, HT, whatever. What was your first ham radio setup? And if you want to share, what you got that's going on most recently? VA3WHU, AG4YL, and the net.
Yeah, good evening, ladies. Victor Alpha 3 Whiskey Hotel Uniform. Carol here in Hamilton, Ontario. I've only been licensed for a couple of years now, and I bought a radio from a blind ham in Welland, Ontario, Vincent, Victor Echo 3 Delta Victor, a Kenworth 350. Since then I've purchased a Flex 3000 used, which used a lot, so I use that one probably most of all. I have the Yaesu FTDX 1200, which I love. My husband has the same model. He got his first, and I bought mine second-hand, and I got a better deal on it than he did on his, so he wasn't too happy about the met a guy in Brantford, and he had one brand new in the box that I was, my husband, you know, looks around on Quark, KWAR, I think it's ARC or ARK, if I'm not mistaken. It's Kitchener-Waterloo Amateur Radio Club. They have a buy and sell site on the computer, and you can look them up anytime if you're looking for any used equipment. And I saw that he had the Yaesu FTDX 1200 for sale, so I got a really good deal on that one. So, but I do use my Flex 3000 a lot. I got a really good deal on that as well, and the gentleman that I bought it from, Marty, here in Hamilton, BE3QEE, he sold me that one, and I'm very happy with it, and it came with a computer, and everything's built into the computer for running the Flex, so I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, I'd like to upgrade most definitely and get a nicer Flex as time allows, but yeah, I enjoy my equipment, and I go on ONTARS, and I don't know if April is familiar with the ONTARS net. Vince does ONTARS on Saturday mornings from 7 to 8, and he's very active on the ONTARS website there and everything else. So for a blind hand, he's absolutely brilliant. I mean, puts the rest of us, puts me to shame on that. But I mean, he's been on ham radio for years and years, and as I say, I'm fairly new still and still learning, and love to get involved in different things. We have about 6 or 7 antennas up in our backyard. If anybody's seen my pictures on Facebook of my backyard, it's like an antenna farm. Brian just got a new 6-meter antenna that he's been working on, and with me not being too well lately and being off work and so on and so forth, it's just a case of catching up. But I have been enjoying my amateur radio time during my time off of work. So I'm going to send it back to the net. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for listening.
Well, thank you very much, Carol, AG4L here. You know, it's a great way to start is to get some good quality, you know, used gear from hams that are, you know, definitely capable and experienced and can help you, you know, pick out some good things or choose some good things, or even have some things of their own they're willing to sell you. The first HF rig that I used, I borrowed from the club, and at the time they had pictures of all the HF rigs on their web page under their equipment loan program, and you know, I literally went through their HF rigs one by one and looked up in you know, rig picks and EHAM, and did research on these things to find out which one I wanted to borrow and play with. I'm like, that one looks, and I settled on the Kenwood 450 Sat and never looked back. Absolutely fabulous radio, and that's what got me. That activated all the national parks that Catherine and I did in 2016 for National Parks on the Air. It was lugging that Kenwood 450 Sat around, and it even had a you know, a loose connector in the back, something. I don't know if it probably took a static hit at one time that weakened it. You know, who knows what this radio had been through in the past, but you know, opened it up and soldered it and fixed it and put it back together again. And off we went and continued on about our way. But I had that radio for a year. I had borrowed it in February of 2016, and I returned it in February of 2017 after I came back from Hamcation with my new Kenwood TF590FG. So that was kind of where I progressed and where I am now with that. But thank you so much for sharing that, Carol. It's interesting hearing everybody's experiences, kind of what they started with. It's kind of cool. And you mentioned a net there, and this is actually going to April next. So April VE3 BHG April, if you would like to comment and answer Carol's question on if this
Okay, VE3BHG here. Now, Carol mentioned a blind ham by Vince, and I think I may have met him. I think when I moved downtown here in Welland, he might have been on the next street over from me. I don't think he lives there anymore. But he was a blind fellow, and I mean, this is going back quite a few years. And he asked me a couple of times if his radio was interfering with any of my equipment. And at the time, I had a computer that had wired speakers, and once in a while I might hear him on my speakers at 10 o'clock at night, but other than that, it wasn't a problem. So if he's still in Welland, that's wonderful, but I haven't seen or heard anything of him for quite a while. Now, there is a fellow who has an antenna farm over north of town there that I don't know who it is, but now that I know what I'm looking for, looked in the backyard and went, hey, I know what he does, or she. Anyway, so it'll be fun to meet that person. Our group, NPark, is starting up again in September. We have our 70th anniversary celebration, once again on September the 15th. I am so brand new, I'm still wet behind the ears, so to speak, as far as radios are concerned. I do have my HT, my Bofang UB5R, and getting a 5/8 mag mount antenna and sticking it on a cookie sheet, sitting on my balcony. All of a sudden, I was getting the net without having to do any fiddling around. And so the only thing that I have been able to catch on it is the local, the Wednesday nights, which we don't do in the summer, of NPark. And Tuesday, I was able to listen to a portion of the Tuesday night TechNet. So Echolink is pretty well. I'm going to pause for reset because my timeout's about to get me, so hang on. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, I had the cursor in the wrong window. I have Echolink, and I do chime in on a few nets on Echolink, and it's helped me immeasurably to be able to talk to other hams and to communicate on the Dewdrop In chat while I'm here. I still have some friends who I'm hoping will become ham radio operators. One, she was expecting to write the exam last week, and that didn't pan out, but I know there's a class in September, so I mean, all things being equal, hopefully that will happen. I've toyed with the idea of getting my advance, but I'm not sure about it yet. I might just do that, depending. I'll have to talk to our examiner and see what he has to say about that, and how much more complicated it is, and so forth and so on, because it sounds like it would be okay for me, now that I'm kind of acquainted with all the stuff. But so really, I'm very new. I found some I have to look it up. I found some coaxial in my attic that looks as if it was used for television, and I know that usually the television coax isn't very much good for antenna work, but I'm going to look it up and see what it is good for, and if not, I can always pass it along. But looking forward to getting back into the meetings, because I know that our group is really good for, you know, like for me to get a radio that's going to match my R5. And one of the guys introduced me to DMR, and I've heard that there's quite a learning curve to that, but it's one other way to be sure that I can get a good signal and I can actually talk to people. So, you know, that's where I'm at kind of right now, and like I say, very, very, very new to the hobby, and enjoying finding this net and other ladies' nets. So, anyways, that's my story for now. So I'm going to turn it back to Net Control. Thank you very much. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story, April. And you know, everybody starts somewhere, and yeah, putting a cookie sheet out there and using you said you got a 5/8, so you've got a little more length on that than what I had on my car. But yeah, I just had a little quarter wave on my car. But yeah, you can definitely get out with that, and Echolink is your best friend. It's a lot of fun, and it does make a big difference and make it a lot easier to talk to people, and also to you know, find out and learn some different things and try some things out. You know, the more you know, different rigs you can play with and different things you can do. And I don't know if your candy store in that area. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but you know what I'm talking about. Up in Ontario has the type of setup like Ham Radio Outlet does here in the States, but they have pretty much every model of radio hooked up to an antenna, plugged in, turned on, and a microphone, and you can sit there and make cues and use all the radios and play around with them, and it makes it interesting because you can try out different things. But you know, like I said, I tried out through the club, through the club radios, and you know, other people and friends, and they get me way per hour and try different things out. And, I knew what I wanted to get, and read a lot of stuff and talked to a lot of people, and I'm very happy with my choice. But yeah, Echolink is great, and so is you know, getting on and seeing what machines you can work locally with your you know, HT and your 5/8 on the cookie sheet. It works out very good. I'm so happy that you're enjoying the net, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm going to jump over to N5KUO. Judy, I understand you're short time. We're just talking about our very first ham radio setup, whether it was an HT or Echolink or whatever, and kind of like a brief progression is what this has turned into. And if you'd like to share what you're currently using now, if it's different, so Judy, N5KUO, if you'd like to share your first ham radio setup with the group. This is AG4YL and the net. Okay, AG4YL returning. Judy, N5KUO is over in the chat, and she mentions that she's missed a few nets after her. I'm assuming that carpal tunnel surgery that she underwent. So she may have stepped away. She may be just listening only, but she did say she wasn't going to be on long. So I wanted to be sure to give her an opportunity if she wanted to, get on and share with the group or just say hello. Give her that opportunity. So I'll give a shout out one more time to the N5KUO, AG4YL, and the group. Okay, AG4YL are returning. I'm just going to assume she probably just stepped away or just is listening and trying to relax and taking care of her recovery. So we wish her luck with that. And if anybody out there sees a chat or something that I've missed, I think Catherine's watching things, just let us know. We'll bring it right back on in. That brings us to Nisi, K1ULN. Nisi, would you like to share with the group what was your very first ham radio setup? And if you care to, what your progression was and what you're currently using. K1ULN, G4YL, and the group.
Good evening. So this is an easy one for me, because I think I've been in ham 30 years. Doesn't seem like that. I actually skipped about 10 years. But I've been licensed for, I think, 30 years. And I'm a software engineer, and the person I went to a convention or whatever, and a friend of mine, he put this little HT down on the floor, and I picked it up, and I said, "Breaker 19," and I wasn't even a CB'er. He goes, "No." So he was my Elmer, and I bought a ICOM 761. And that's still my main radio now. I love it. It works beautiful. There's never been anything wrong with it. So that's basically what I use. The only thing that has changed is actually I've added the KX3 recently, but that's only for parks on the air. That's only for activating parks. The only thing that has changed is my antenna systems. It probably is better now than it was. I had a wicked beam system, tower and a beam, huge beam, and lots of other verticals, and I never had any dipoles. Now I have, I don't want a tower. I had a tower here. And I took that down. I love verticals and I love dipoles. I just built the Moxon. I think I put it out there for all the YLs, and a couple of YLs have built it. It's really easy. If you want a 6-meter antenna, it's really, really, really easy to build. So if I could just reset and just come back and mention one thing about parks on the air. Alrighty, K-A-1-U-L-N again. So I never did any national parks on the air. I know Catherine and Mel did some activations with national parks on the air. Never really thought that was interesting to do, but since I got the KX3, I've had it a year now, and I've been preparing it for parks on the air. And I am ready now, and I have activated 2. It's very exciting. It's like your own little private little field day. It really is exciting. I keep setting up my setup at home in my backyard, and it works. It works great. But when I got it to the park, it didn't work so great. I had an instead from QRP Guys, QRPguys.com. I had the 40 to 10 meter antenna. It worked perfect at home. Didn't work perfect at the park. But luckily I bought like 3 antennas with me. So just recently I bought a spider beam, which is a 40 meter telescoping pole, a 40 meter telescoping pole basically. So it folds down to something very small, and you can telescope it up, ratchet it up basically to 40 feet. It has an eyelet on top, and I am gonna, next time I go out, I'm gonna create an inverted V and then watch out. So, I really do want to encourage all the YLs here to try Parks on the Air. Check out the website, parksontheair.com. It's really great. It will teach you everything, or else you can look at my blog, ka1uln.blogspot.com, or just shoot me an email, ka1uln@arrl.net, and I'll help you out. To have your own personal field day is really incredible. Alrighty, the Patriots are on, and I'm going to go watch the game. Back to net.
Okay, well, excellent information there. I knew the antennas would be really a big thing, and yeah, it is like having your own private field day when you go out and activate a park. In addition to Parks on the Air, there is the original Make Nature Your Shack group, which is the WWFF, or Worldwide Flora and Fauna. They are the overall outdoor activation, parks and historic sites activation. In fact, it was WWFF that was partially inspiring to National Parks on the Air. The U.S. arm of that, a lot of countries that have a lot of participation, a lot of people that get out there and participate and do this, can have their own arms or chapters, if you will. And the U.S. chapter of the WWFF is KFF, and you can just look up KFF, WWFF, and you'll find their website. They have some beautiful certificates, and their QSO requirements are and have always been following the WWFF, which is 44 for an activation. It was the U.S. Parks on the Air sort of split off from the KFF. It's probably been a year and a half now since they've done that, and because they kind of wanted to do their own rules and their own ways of having their QSOs counted and their own awards and things like that. So 2 different things you guys can check out there. I want to let it drop for reset. AG4YL returning. So yeah, a couple places you can check out, the WWFF KFF and the Parks on the Air, 2 different organizations, and that's lots of fun. Now, Janice, K4IJK, started your hamming with a 6er. You said you don't currently have a 6 meter. The Moxon is an amazing antenna, and you still might be able to make some good, end of summer cues on 6. You might need to get with Nisi, K1ULN, about her 6-meter antenna and make you one. And she'll be glad to share it with you. She'll even send you what you need, minus the coax. And you can visit her blog at ka1uln.blogspot.com, and she'll be glad to help you with that. Very successful. For those of you that aren't familiar and don't know who Nisi is, Ka1uln, Nisi is into building antennas. She loves building antennas, and kind of got sort of started with us here with the net, with her dipoles, and my salutation. One of these days I'll have an eyeball QSO with Nisi, and I'm going to run up to her and go 468. She'll get it. Dipole formula. Janice might want to get with Nisi and check that out and take care of that. And it's good to hear Nisi's information on that. I'm glad you too are enjoying proximity. Antennas never work until you get out there and try to work it out, and when you depend on it. But of course, you brought some extra, so that's a great story, and glad to hear from you on that. I'd like to welcome Shirley, DK5YL. Shirley is the president of ALARA, I believe still, and is also the gal that, if you want to do anything on this Echolink conference, she's the one that you need to contact and make sure there's no scheduling conflicts and kind of get her okay on that. And she's the one that has so graciously allowed us to use this conference, and we are very grateful for that here at the YLNet. So welcome, Shirley. We're just catching up with everybody on what was their first. Okay, AG4YL returning. For some reason, we dropped, and I dropped off there, and apparently nobody knew. We'd like to welcome Christina, KT5EGB. Nice to have you come in. This net goes for an hour and a half, so it's good to have you jump in there when you can. You can join this net at any time during the hour and a half that it runs. And if you'd like to hop on here after the net and have some conversations until the minnow net, which starts at 10:30 Eastern, an hour after this net ends, you can hang in there, and Margaret runs that. We'd be glad to hear from the YLs on that as well. And I think she's still up on this list. I dropped for some reason when I was passing it to you. So WB1ARU, AG4YL, and the net. What was your first ham radio setup?
Well, good evening. Yeah, I'm not on the list anymore. I think, well, I wasn't, because I think the list truncates after a certain number or something, and we've exceeded the number of names that can be seen on the screen or something. It seems odd to me, but that's the way it seems to work. Well, I'm kind of like Margaret. I married a ham, and I got my license after a while, and I, too, was licensed at the very end of 76, beginning of 77, and there was already a shack in the house with a Hallicrafters, and a Hammerland. A separate transmitter and receiver, and learned how to work that, sort of. And but about the time that I got licensed, we bought a Heathkit SB 103A, 104A, I think it was 104A, and built it. The two of us built it together. I think Tony did most of the soldering, but I did a lot of the sorting and the placements and all of that, and we put the whole thing together, and I think we used that radio for 20, 25 years before we upgraded to a Yaesu 2000. No, Yaesu, what was that? Yeah, I think it was 2000. Anyway, and we had that one for, oh, there it is over there. I think it's going on the market, at the flea market, that is. I can't see the number on it from here, and I can't remember it anymore, but that's all right. And we had that for another 20 years, I guess, before we just upgraded to the Flex. And then we upgraded to Flex. But anyway, that's another story. We didn't have 2-meter radios for a long time. We just were happy doing HF, and now I don't even use the 2 meters that often because there just isn't that much 2-meter activity around here. So I have 2-meter radios. We have base, mobile, handhelds of all sorts. But I think I used to, when I was still working, I was on with a couple of fellows every morning on 2 meters. We were all commuting and had great conversations and just loved chatting with them every morning. And they retired long before I did, but then I retired, and it just isn't the activity on 2 around here anymore. So mostly do HF, a little bit of Echolink, and that's about it now, a little bit of 2. So that was my first rig, and I'm kind of like Margaret. I know mostly how to use this stuff, but if anything happens, I'm kind of like, help. So, and the latest addition to the shack is a mixer, so we can have a choice of microphones. WB1ARU, back to net.
AG4YL returning. Well, that's cool. Nice to have choices, right? Good new addition mixers. Really great, so that you can have a little bit more control between your radios and your microphones. So that's cool. I remember my dad had a bunch of Heathkit stuff, but my dad also had Collins stuff, so I think he was a mixed bag. I think he got Collins radios and then, hand-built other stuff too. He could build and fabricate just about anything, so it was no big deal for him to build his own stuff and put it together. Let's see, is, I think, Ann KC9YL. Not sure, and you're right, NWB1RU, the list, after you populate for a while, it does fall off the bottom. But on the phone, you can actually scroll all the way down, which is kind of fun. I do see Ann, KC9YL, is still with us, and you're up. What? This sort of a bad joke involving continents of the world. But anyway, KC9YL, what was your first ham radio setup, and any other information on stuff in between or stuff at the end you'd like to add? Please feel free. KC9YL, AG4YL, and the net. Okay, and KC9YL. I see you're probably having maybe some TX issues or something. So we can, if you want to chat anything in there, I think Catherine's monitoring the chat. If you want to put something in the Echo Link chat and tell us what's up, if you're just having some issues, TX issues, or trying to work it out or figure it out. You want to try again, KC9YL, AG4YL, and the net. Okay, and no problem. Things happen sometimes. It's not a big deal. It's really okay. So if anytime you want to test it, try, go into your microphone settings, or I'm not quite sure what you're using to connect, but if you want to poke around and see what's up, make sure your stuff is plugged in. And if you did a Windows update, no, just kidding. Well, not really. But if you want to poke around there and see what's going on, anytime you want to retest, drop something in the chat, and we'll let you come in there and see if we can't pick you up. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get Judy KE7IXI. And Judy, what was your first ham radio setup? And you know the rest. You've been listening to this whole thing, yada, yada, yada. KE7IXI, AG4YL, and the group.
2 meter 440 link off.
Okay, not hearing anything from Judy KE7IXI. Let's see what's up with Shirley VK5YL. Shirley, good evening to you. Glad you could join us on the net. We've just been talking about what our first ham radio setup was, and from Echo Link and HTs all the way up to Heathkit Sixers and SDRs. So Shirley, VK5YL, AG4YL, and the net.
AG4YL, this is VK5YL. Good afternoon, good evening, ladies. It's great to be back on the on this station again. I've been away from the radio for the last week as I had a bit of a fall, but I am recovering. My OM came into the shack before and said, golly, that's strange having ladies YLs talk about antennas. I said, you have to be into this one every Friday because you go for an hour and a half. I don't always get in, but anyway, he's quite interested. He is the designer of the antenna analyzer under his original call sign of VK5JST. His call sign on the radio now is VK5 Tango Radio. But yeah, and also the other news I've got is that I will have the VI5 Marconi special call sign from Monday the 17th to Friday the 28th of September. I'm going to have a lot of fun. I do get involved with the ANZANET every day on 14.183. That's how often they're on. I can't get on every day, but I do like to call in. Yeah, I've got to practice the Marconi, or the phonetic parts of Marconi, before I actually go on air. Yes, it is a mouthful. Okay, I've had my license for about 18 years now, back in 2000. I read an article, my OM was reading an article in the Australian, the amateur radio magazine for you, and he said, oh, there's a lady here who's gone for a license. And I said, oh, okay. So I read it later on, and I thought, heck, if she can do it, so can I. So I did. And the rest is history, so they say. But I'm still using my first radio, the ICOM 751, and we live in suburbia, so I don't have any big trees that I can throw a wire across. But my OM put up a G5RB, and I've managed to get to most places. I'm having trouble with Tokyo and Europe at the moment, but conditions are shocking at the moment with propagation the way it is. But anyway, the ICOM 751 has been my only radio. My OM keeps saying, you need a new radio, you need one of these modern things. No, thank you. I like the dial. I've got the, I don't have an automatic tuner. I've got the amplifier which he built as well, and I can get up to 1,000 watts if I really want to, but it's not legal in Australia, so I have to tone it down when I'm using it. I get up to about 400 watts. So there you go, girls, that's my history. I've been president for 2 and a bit years. There's another election in May and I have to stand down, but I'm having a lot of fun. So anyway, back to net. This is VK5YL.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Shirley. I appreciate you coming in, and that's very interesting that he created that antenna analyzer. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We talk about all kinds of things like antennas and radios and gear. Oh my, on this net. When Catherine and I were being interviewed down in Orlando this spring, one of the things that the interviewer did was pick up one of our net recordings and just kind of click on it randomly, and he listened for a minute. It was actually Rhea talking about something about the radio, and he listened for a minute, and he put it out, on the air and recorded it, and he said, sounds like a amateur radio net to me. So, not that he was surprised, but that he was trying to demonstrate to his listeners that, yes, YLs have real nets too, just like the guys do that talk about radio and stuff. So, but now I have a quick question for Shirley here, before we go to Christina and then wrap up, because I know it's getting a little late. Shirley, are you stepping down as ALARA president because, or not stepping down, but not going up for re-election because you have to? Do you have term limits, or just because you want to give somebody else a shot at it? VK5YL, AG4YL, and the net.
AG4YL, VK5YL, I'm standing down because I have to, because our Constitution says that our President has to stand down after 3 years. I've got another lady all ready to step into the position. I've had a lot of fun as President, and if there is a vacancy in the future, I will put my hand up again. But yeah, every 3 years the President has to stand down. The rest of the committee don't, and thank goodness for that, because we have a wonderful secretary in Jean, VK5TSX, who is just so efficient it's not funny. I've been a secretary all my life, but she can run rings around me sometimes, but then I'm a bit older than I used to be. Back to you, Melanie. AG4YL, VK5YL.
Yes, I understand. I figured there was probably a term limit, and that leads to one other question. Are you still going to continue to be a custodian, if you will, for lack of a better word, of the ALARA Conference node on Echolink, VK5YL, AG4YL, and the group?
AG4YL, VK5YL. Yes, I'm still the contact for the Alara Conference station. I was on the, I was coordinator long before I became president. Nobody else seems to want the job, so I'm happy to keep it going. It's no hassle for me. So back to you, Melanie.
Excellent. Okay. That's always good to know, and always good to know who to take our hat off to. Of course, the as I mentioned earlier, this conference node is wonderful, and we are very grateful to be able to use this, and we do always, as always, thank the Alara Conference, which is what's in our closing thing. I'm really tired. Our postscript, if you will, and we would like to go ahead and launch into that and say, don't forget to visit and post to our YL OpNet Facebook group and continue net topics and questions there in between the weekly nets. We also encourage you to participate and post all ham-related questions, adventures, and all things ham radio related in the YLOpsGroups.io group page. And we would like to thank Lauren KC9ZHV for live streaming and recording of this net whenever possible and making it available to all through YouTube. We would also like to thank again Alara for the use of this Echolink conference node, the North Fulton Amateur Radio League for their Dewdrop in chat room, and all linked and listening for your ongoing support of this net. This is Melanie AG4YL closing the YL OpNet, returning the Alara Conference node back to normal use. Thank you very much, ladies. It was a pleasure and an honor, and a wonderful net. Thank you all for all of your participation, and we look forward to seeing you next week. 33, good night.